So in this season of resolutions, I want you to imagine me 10 pounds lighter. How about 20? 30? Too much? Let's try 50 pounds lighter. That's where this story begins. It's about 15 years ago, and I've just gotten married, and I weigh about 125 pounds. Now, I had celiac disease. I have celiac disease. It's an autoimmune disorder that doesn't allow you to eat anything with gluten in it. So I was way ahead of all the hipsters out there. And I would go into restaurants at the time, and they didn't know what gluten was. But I had it under control, I thought. I knew that I couldn't eat bread, I couldn't eat this, I couldn't eat that. So if I was careful, I'd be fine, because it's really the only thing you could do when you have celiac, stay away from the gluten. But I kept getting thinner and thinner, and when I would eat, I would start to feel sick, no matter what it was. I'd have a piece of chicken, and my head would get all fuzzy, or some potatoes, and my mouth would swell up. I had constipation. I had no sex drive. It was terrible. I didn't know what was going on. At my wedding, I was so thin that it hurt my feet to walk down the aisle. And when people hugged me, I thought I was going to break in half. People thought that, this is just all in your head. You're crazy. It's just a matter of getting used to it. Eat some other food, try it. You just want attention. My wife, she thought I was dying. The concept to me at that point seemed so alien. I can't die. So I was resolved to find a way to make this work. So I went to several gastroenterologists. I went to allergists. I went to nutritionists. I went to acupuncturists. I tried everything. The nutritionist said, if you're losing weight, why don't you just eat twice as many potatoes? She went to school for this, and that's what she told me. I went for a colonoscopy and an endoscopy. Those are not fun. And I didn't know what to do. Now, a friend of mine in Canada, his mother had some similar issues. She couldn't eat anything. And she's very similar to me, because when I describe my symptoms, I get fuzzy-headed, I have to lie down, I have sores in my mouth, my throat starts to swell, I don't know what it is, because nothing came back from any of these other doctors I went to, nothing. So she said, well, I know somebody. There's this system where you go and they give you a vial of water that's charged with the same, molecular whatevers of whatever food it is you want. And you hold on to it, and they touch all of your, special trigger points or what have you, and suddenly you can eat it. Now, at this point, I'm only able to eat lamb burgers, which they sell in the supermarket around the corner from me in Brooklyn, broccoli, peanut butter on a spoon, and some variations of very green and gross and disgusting drinks. I was juicing everything, but I was still losing weight, and I was terrified. But just the concept, the whole idea of this is it, you're gonna die, I guess I was just too close to it to even understand that was a possibility. So I went to this doctor in Chelsea and got up on the table, and she said, what do you want to eat next? What do you miss most? Well, I miss chicken. I love it. And it's good, solid food. All right, so she takes this vial of water, does some kind of thing over it, puts it in my hand. And, she touches all the various meridian points on my body, says, lie there for 20 minutes and don't say anything. And I'm thinking, oh God, I could just taste the chicken. I'm so hungry. All I've been eating is just these 3 things, and I'm losing weight all the time. And when she's done, she comes back in the room and says, okay, now you just have to stay away from that for the next 24 hours. Don't go within 6 feet of chicken. So I have to ride the subway back to my apartment in Brooklyn. And anyone who's ridden the subway in New York knows how difficult it is to be within 6 feet of somebody who's eating a full entire meal. So I am completely paranoid, because I'm so earnest about this. And I'm pressed up against the doors, and I'm just stay away from me with that food, who knows what's in there? Anyway, it doesn't work. I spent $2,500 on this. I keep going back, and she says, no, you're not trying hard enough. You need to open yourself up to this. At the end, I was so desperate, she says, I can do a double session for you. We can do 2 foods at once. Chicken and potatoes? Okay, we can do that. And then I don't know how I let this happen, because I like to think of myself as a pretty smart person, not one to be conned. She ends up taking pieces of paper written with the food that I want to eat. It tells me just to hold the pieces of paper. So, I'm nearly 125 pounds, and my wife has had it. We've been married like 3 months. And she's like, I can't lose him already. I can't. So she goes to her friend, Beth, who's an allergist, and says, we're desperate. Do you know anybody we can go to? And she suggests this doctor, Dr. Morton Teach, on Park Avenue. So we go to see him, doesn't take insurance, but I'm like, let's try it out. I'm desperate. And I just blew $2,500. So the first thing he says when we go in there, he says, take off your shoes, let me look at your feet. Now I know I have perfect feet. That's my best trait. Unfortunately, you're not gonna see them, but they are my best trait. And he's looking between the toes to see if there's any kind of fungus on it or something like that. And he starts to ask me various questions about how I feel when I eat these foods. Ultimately, he wants to test to see if there's any yeast in my digestive tract. And the tests come back and I'm in the 99th percentile. And he explains to me that these feelings, like I've been hit in the side with a baseball bat, or this fuzzy-headed feeling, these feelings like I'm gonna die, that it is, the yeast has broken through the intestinal wall, little microscopic pieces of food are getting into my bloodstream. And he says to my wife, if he loses any more weight, we're gonna have to hospitalize him. So, he gives me the full run of things. We have to test for parasites, which I do not have, thank God, because that would freak me out. I would not be able to deal with parasites. He sent somebody out to my home to look for mold, and there was black mold everywhere. And because I'm living in Brooklyn, the place is a gray apartment, even with black mold. I remember thinking, how are we ever gonna find a place this good? So, you know, I'm supposed to stay away from anything with yeast in it, which I thought I had been doing already, but all sorts of things cause that. Like, I was also able to eat like some fruits, but you know, even fruit kind of turns into sugar, which sets this thing off and it just kind of grows and grows. And I'm like kind of, you know, my whole insides are full of this stuff. So he puts me on a whole bunch of pills, digestive enzymes, and calcium, and licorice. You know, licorice is a thing. It helps the intestinal tract heal. To this day, I still take licorice sometimes when I eat gluten, and it works. There's like 8 or 9 pills, and friends and family are looking at me like I'm just the biggest hypochondriac. It's the funniest thing. When you're sick, people just assume you're a hypochondriac. It's like nobody in the world can ever be sick. You've got to be making it up. So, you know, my wife's cousin's like, oh, those 8 bottles of pills you're bringing to the table. We got with somebody else, a literary agent, and at dinner they asked some kind of question about whether it was my AIDS cocktail. You know, I didn't know what to do. But I started taking the digestive enzymes. I started staying away from some of the foods that he suggested. And he gives me this pill called nystatin, which kills yeast. That's the solution. And I'm gonna believe this guy because he knows what he's talking about. And I take the pill, and I feel like I'm going to die. It is the worst feeling I've ever had. It is like the flu. I cannot get out of bed. I cannot move. And I go back to him and I say, well, what is this? He said, well, that is the die-off effect. You take this pill and it kills off the yeast in you, and it gets in, you know, they start dying off, and it's gonna feel like you have the flu. And this goes on for months. And at this point, the cure feels worse than the actual disease. And there's a million times I could have given up because it is just the worst feeling. And when I go to work, my colleague who I work with, she thinks I just want attention too. I just want people to wait on me hand and foot and feed me the way I want because I'm a narcissist after all. But really, I'm dying. And nobody could understand that. 12 years later, she finally apologized to me. She said, I didn't know. I did not know. And a lot of people were like that. But the nystatin worked gradually. And eventually, I got a job in Boston. And I left behind my amazing $1,600 a month apartment in Brooklyn in Park Slope. And I stayed with my wife's cousins out in Wayland. And I started having flashbacks initially to my childhood. when there was green grass. You know, because the 2 years I lived in New York, I never saw grass. It was all concrete. And the air felt fresh. It really did feel fresh. And I started to get better. The sores started to go away. I started to not feel fuzzy at it afterwards. And it was a long road. It took years and years until I was able to be back to where I was. And now, just a few weeks ago, I was back in Canada visiting my father, and I was able to go to my favorite restaurant. It's a Canada-wide chain called Swiss Chalet. I'd grown up with it. It is the best chicken you will ever have, and as a celiac person, I can eat the sauce. It's really hard to find sauce you can eat. So twice I had chicken and potato, and I ate the skin. I'm 46, I'm not supposed to be doing that, but I did. And it was really good. And all this brought me to today, when for the first time in my life, I can actually afford to lose 5 or 6 pounds. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jon Papernick. Before we get to our final speaker, we want to announce next month's theme. It is Tempted.